Hello.
Tim.
Welcome to Wine and
And
Design.
I'm Melissa Guerra with NXG Studio, a full-service architecture and interior design firm in Palm Beach, Florida that I run with my husband, Noe.
I'm Tim Dolly. I'm an interior designer based in Dallas, Texas. We do mostly residential design.
And I am Nick Smith. I am an attorney in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm here to talk about making jam, which is a hobby of mine.
Nick and I have known each other since college. We won't say how long that's been because we don't like to date ourselves. But Nick is here today to talk about helping us with some kitchen ideas, some jams and cocktails. Nick is a master of making jams, of doing his own rillette, of making just fantastic cocktails. So while we're on that topic today, we thought Nick would be a great addition to the show, which, for anybody who's observant, is why we are drinking out of jam jars today.
That's for me.
Except for Tim, who is a terrible Southerner and did not have a mason jar in his cupboard.
But I did have this glass, which you bought for me. So there's, thank you.
You're welcome. But you're going to get a set of mason jars in the mail now because you can't be Southern and not have mason jars.
That's fine. That's fine. Or hopefully Nick's gonna get me to want to start making jellies and stuff too, honey, you can cook. You already know that, but you can cook. You can throw down.
But I haven't started making jams and jellies because Nick is always very nice. A giant case of them for birthdays and Christmas, so he keeps me well jammed. So Nick, I'm drinking wine. Tim is drinking vodka. What are you drinking?
So I threw together a little cocktail using some jam. I do a peach bourbon brown sugar jam and thought that would make a nice flavoring to a little bourbon cocktail. So kind of riffing off of the old-fashioned ingredients. Took some bourbon, took about a spoonful of this peach jam, a little bit of water to kind of make effectively a simple syrup.
Right.
A few dashes of orange bitters to give it a little complexity, and then maraschino cherry. So pretty simple, but very tasty, easy cocktail to throw together.
That sounds delightful. I have some of your peach jam in my pantry, assuming that my nephew hasn't eaten all of it. And I will make that cocktail later because that sounds lovely.
There you go.
I don't have any of your.
Talking about pantries. So is everyone on a total organizing kick right now because there's nothing else to do in their house but organize and clean?
We've been spray painting everything. I don't know why, but we bought a can of spray paint and we're just spray painting everything gold. So the whole house eventually is just going to be covered in gold spray paint.
It's going to be Versailles. You're going to do the Hall of Mirrors. And everything is gold.
It's going to be Donald Trump's apartment in New York. Even the toilet.
Well, that's more Elvis. Elvis had the golden toilet.
True.
I'm going for Versailles meets Finger Hut,
Is that a design style? Is that something that we need to bring to the forefront of cutting edge interior design?
Yes, yeah. Get some gold spray paint and just spray everything. Done.
Well, so I actually have been trying to organize and get things together, so at least we can feel like we've accomplished something for that. So, I think right now is a good time to think about what is in your pantry, what kind of staples you need to get through, how to keep things organized in a well-stocked kitchen. But even thinking about your kitchen layout, and at the end of this, if you realize that your kitchen isn't really sufficient for needs, it's a good time to maybe think about knocking it out and redoing it. But in the meantime, it's always a good idea to think about how things are stored in the kitchen, where your Tupperware is kept in relation to your food, where your trash is kept, where your trays are kept, how your cutting boards are kept. Do you have more stuff than you actually need? Do you not have the right equipment? There are, ways to make a kitchen very easy and nice and useful with just some minor cleaning out. A good set of knives is one of the most important things that you can have. A good cutting board is one of the best things that you can have. And with those two things and even a pot, you can make a whole lot of stuff out of your kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Well, and also just having a well-stocked pantry and one that's organized means that you have a lot of stuff in there that you can pull from, especially in times like these, whenever you know, want to limit your exposure to the grocery store and you don't want to get out of the house, or maybe you're in self-quarantine. And it's just nice to know that you have something in the back of your pantry that you can always throw together in a pinch. Our pantry right now would probably last us until mid-May.
Yeah, I think we're about there too on that, but it's an unusual thing for me because I usually cook with so much fresh produce that it's been a kind of an adjustment to think about throwing in, you know, the pastas and the rice, which has been great. My waistline doesn't think so, but it's been great to actually do that. The short rib pasta I made yesterday, oh my God, it was good. But, you know, right now we're not wearing anything that has a zipper or button.
I mean, you know, the great thing is with these meetings too is all you have to have is a shirt. That's it. Anything that's down here doesn't matter.
There's some statistic that Walmart is like they've had an uptick in sales of shirts, not pants, just shirts.
Oh, I thought you were going to say moo-moos for a second. But...
Well, it's kind of hard to top a Walmart moo-moo sale, I would think. Like, I mean, how do they really best those numbers?
It's a daily occurrence, unfortunately.
Oh no, okay. So Nick, what are some things you always keep in your pantry and in your bar to make sure that you can always throw a good party or a party for one in this time of the quarantine?
Yeah, seriously. So I do like to bake and cook. So I think I keep a lot more probably raw ingredients, you know, basic ingredients on hand. But you know, preserving is a great way to stock your pantry so you can have those things on hand when you want to entertain. You know, so like jams and pickles are a great accompaniment to a charcuterie board.
Oh, yes.
And then even if you kind of get into more involved canning processes where you're canning meats and pâtés and things like that. So like the duck and goose you know, if you have the wherewithal to go through that process and actually can it, it is great to have some jars of that around that you can pop open, you know, for yourself or if, you know, for whatever reason.
So, you know, one of the things that we're trying to talk about during this whole home in the time of coronavirus is obviously being a little even more aware of not wasting anything because we don't want to waste a trip to the grocery store. We don't want to buy food that we're then going to have to throw out because we didn't get to it. So, you know, let's walk through some of like the jamming process, you know, the process of making jam. You know, I just bought a bunch of strawberries in great hopes that I will eat them, but let's pretend that I realize I'm not. And I want to make a jam out of that. Where do I start? What do I do?
Sure. So I think first, you know, as you pointed out, you've got strawberries. And it's strawberry season in Florida, and strawberries are coming into season or about to come into season in a lot of places in the U.S. So I think that's a great fruit to talk about right now. And when I approach jamming, I want to focus on fruits that are in season because you want to kind of capture that element of freshness. But if you are looking at making jam that you can ultimately can, a lot of the recipes kind of start you off with a ratio of 1-to-1 fruit to sugar.
Right.
For me, that's a little too sweet. So I do ratchet that down to, like, if I had 4 cups of strawberries, maybe even as high as 5 cups of strawberries, I'd use 3 cups of sugar. If you start ratcheting that sugar down even more, you do risk because sugar is a preservative. So it doesn't just affect the taste, it's also something that's going to help you preserve it. So just be mindful about how long you want that product to hang around. But like, so in your strawberry example, you know, let's wash the strawberries, we'd hull the strawberries, give them a rough chop, throw them in a pan, add the sugar, put them on the stove over about a medium heat. You know, the sugar is going to help draw out the strawberries juices, and then add in, you're going to need a little bit of acid that also helps, you know, for a preservative effect. So in that 4-cup example, I might give in half a lemon or a lime and squeeze that juice and add it to the mix.
And you can get creative with some of the stuff you add to the jam too. I mean, you said really, inventive jams that are just fantastic. I mean, whether it's, you know, a little peach and jalapeno or a little bourbon in there, I mean, you really have gotten nice and creative with your jams over the years that it just takes it to a different level than even if you can get at the store.
So, and that's what, you know, someone told me, they're like, well, I'm not very creative, so I just don't think I can come up with something. And I said, you know, it's not necessarily that you have to approach this from some great source of creativity. Just kind of think about it. You've got
Right.
strawberry. What would pair well with strawberry? You know, like you might like sriracha, you know, kind of that sweet, spicy kick.
Right.
You might like, you know, cracked black pepper, that, you know, something that would go great with goat, and push it a little bit to the savory side. It's still going to be sweet, but, you know, not a little unexpected. So just, I tell people just kind of like go through iterations of, okay, strawberry and you're going to hit on like strawberry and anchovies, bad. But strawberry and, you know, a whole host of things, Grand Marnier, orange, lemon,
Right.
lime, you know, the list goes on, and you're going to hit on something that will sound good.
But isn't that, I think that's kind of one of the keys to cooking and kitchen prep in general, and especially with limited supplies right now. You know, if you can't run to the store and say, oh, this recipe is calling for this, I don't have this, what do? I can't make this. It's just learning what flavor profiles go together and, you know, what you can throw together, even if it isn't the exact recipe that you might have at hand. I think, you know, people just get over the fear of what may or may not work together and just start thinking about it just past the basic recipes, people can really open up a whole new world in the kitchen.
Yeah, totally. And just like, you know, with making jam, it's like any other kind of cooking, you know, taste as you go along. So if you know, if you throw some chilies in, let them cook for a while and give it a taste. And, you know, is it right on? Is it not hot enough? Is it too hot? You know, and go from there. So yeah, you don't have to, I mean, I think there's some really basic elements you're limited to, kind of your sugar fruit ratio, having a little bit of acid. But apart from that, you know, you're free to experiment.
So how long do you usually have to cook the jams down for if you're doing it?
So there's two, you know, you're looking for the jam to thicken, and jams thicken from the development of pectin, which is just a fiber that's naturally occurring in most fruit. You can go buy pectin from the grocery store, but you don't have to do that. And I don't do that. I try to develop the natural occurring pectins. So it's going to vary on the kind of fruit it is. Like apples have a ton of pectin, so that those jams are going to thicken up and reach a gel stage earlier than like strawberries or peaches. And I found blueberries are pretty more difficult to work with.
Oh, really?
But yeah, just my experience. But what you're looking for is for that jam to reach what they call a gel state. So if you want to be precise, you can use a candy thermometer and just check the temperature. At sea level, it's 220 degrees Fahrenheit. It reaches the gel state. But your altitude is going to dictate that temperature. So
I live in Florida. I'm at sea level.
you're perfect. Like I'm in Atlanta, and I'm close to 1,000 feet. So it's maybe 218 for me. So I personally don't like. I know it seems like incredibly precise and a no-brainer. I'm not crazy about using the thermometer as a guide. I do what they call as a gel test. You keep some saucers in the freezer while you're making your jam. Pull them out when you think you're close. Put a dollop of the jam on the saucer. Throw it back in the freezer for a minute. When you pull it out, you want to see the gel kind of sheet. So what you're looking for is you push your finger through the jam, and you want to see the surface wrinkling and moving as a whole, as opposed to like running your finger through syrup. So then once you hit it, you're done. You know, so you can put it up however you want. If you want to can it in jars, you can go ahead and do that. If you want to just put it in the fridge, put it in the freezer, you know, however you want to store it.
Well, I want to ask you too, Nick. Like, so for people who have, so Mel loves fresh produce. You know, my husband he would say it, but he's got the palate of a 6-year-old. So, you know, we eat a lot of frozen meals, and, you know, a lot of things thawed out of the freezer. So for people like me who have a lot of dry goods in their pantry and a lot of frozen vegetables and a lot of frozen, you know, meats, what do you think is a kind of a good, something easy to kind of throw together that's going to feed, you know, a family for a couple of days?
So just in terms of that, like general ingredients. So, you know, I'm very Southern, so of course, you know, reach for that casserole. You know, is always something
You know
that's
me.
gonna be a hit. Um, you know, but it depends how. Like, I mean, you know, you've kind of got that maligned Southern casserole where it's cream of chicken soup from a can, and you
What
know,
I grew up eating, even though my mother is not Southern, everything, and I will hear this from her when she watches this, but everything she cooked growing up had either a can of cream of mushroom or had onion soup mix put into it.
but even if you're pulling from various, you know, frozen or packaged things, you can still pull it together with some kind of sauce. So like if you wanted to make you know, a bechamel or a mornay, which is basically, it's a gravy basically, well, flour, butter, you know, milk, to make that bechamel sauce, add some cheese, you've got a mornay sauce, you know, add your cooked rice, add your chopped chicken, add some veggies, add some other stuff, adjust the seasoning, and, you know, there you go. You've got
Yeah.
something that you
And I
can
think people think all this stuff's a lot more complicated than it is because you use words like bechamel and, you know, that just sounds complicated. But, you know, it's just starting with a little flour and butter. And, you know, you try it a few times, and what's the worst that happens? You mess up some flour and butter, you try it a few times, do it again until you get it right. It's not that hard to do. And it adds such a nice other element and just brings your food to the next level. And while we're all stuck at home, and can't be going to restaurants, even though we can still do some takeout, you know, we might as well try and make that eating experience as nice as possible and create a special environment at home so we don't just feel like we're stuck eating the same thing that we always are. You know, now's a good time to get creative, to look at what's in your pantry, look at what's in your refrigerator, and come up with something.
Yeah.
Sometimes, even when we're not stuck in quarantine, I'll see what I have in the fridge, Google a few different ingredients, and then get some haphazard idea of a recipe and then kind of cobble together whatever I want to do anyway. But, you know, just take the fear out of it, because what's the worst that happens? If you taste as you go along, you can correct if something's tasting bad. You know, there's ways to keep it more interesting and more exciting than just having to follow a recipe to the exact T, especially when you can't get all the ingredients that you might normally have. So you can think about, you know, things generally need what? Salt, fat, acid, heat, right? So if you don't have, you know, whatever exact acid they're calling for, think about what else might work with it. There's just different ways to make it work.
Yeah, and Googling how to substitute X for Y, you're usually going to come up with something. You know, like if it calls for buttermilk and you don't have it, there's, you know, tons of substitutions for that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, yeah, don't be afraid to do a little bit of research and to experiment.
Yeah.
I was making banana bread the other day. It was actually the Martha Stewart recipe, Nick, that you told me was the best banana bread, and it is. Shout out to Martha Stewart. But I didn't have sour cream, but I had yogurt, so I put yogurt in instead of the sour cream, and it was delicious.
Yeah, I've done that substitution as well, and it works out great.
Just don't be fearful. I mean, if something sounds weird, then it probably is. But I mean, if you think about what's in yogurt and you think about what's sour cream, is it really all that different? You can absolutely think about that as a substitute. So those are just how you have to start training yourself when you start cooking. You know, so those are just some little tips on how to maybe make it through your pantry, make it through your kitchen, to get through during this whole time of Corona. And then the most important thing is what cocktails that we're all mixing up, I would think, because that, I don't know about you guys, but it's helped. It's helped.
Yeah. I wouldn't know what to do without it.
We were joking about that if they decide that alcohol, like liquor stores, are non-essential, that's really when the people are going to rise up. Like, we've all been really good and patient, but you shut down Total Wine.
Oh yeah, it would not be cute.
No.
I had a panic buying trip to the liquor store because I was afraid in Georgia they may not declare them essential.
That's true. So Nick, maybe that's a whole show topic, is how to start your own distillery in your basement. Let's bring back, if prohibition comes back, how are we going to make our alcohol?
We're making hand sanitizer. We're not making moonshine.
That's right, exactly.
Well, we talked last time too about, like, maybe getting to a place where we could think about maybe reading. Of course, Nick has like all those books behind him, so you like to read.
He's an attorney. They have books. It's what they do.
I guess that's true.
They're all cookbooks.
Are they all cookbooks?
Yes.
Oh, they are. There's Joy of Cooking.
Yeah, that's even better.
We got there. Yes.
What I was going to say is just thinking about things to do. Like, so for me, Netflix is television for me right now is just, I can't do it anymore. I feel like I've been staring at that screen for way too long. So like some other fun things to do. I'm not to reading yet, but what are some fun things that you guys have been doing outside of cooking? Like something crafty, if it is reading, or what are you watching? Like what are some things that you're doing right now just to kind of busy yourself?
Well, you've been spray painting everything gold, apparently.
Uh-huh.
So maybe a book might not be a bad idea, Tim.
We actually we bought a cross stitching kit actually, so I'm going to work on that next.
Are they going to be dirty cross stitches or regular cross stitches?
Dirty, very dirty. Things I can't say on here, but yes.
I'm starting to craft my own coronavirus masks. That's my hobby.
Yeah, I've sewn. A friend of mine is a nurse in California and asked for a mask, so I've sewn that and been sewing some for myself and friends and family. I have this great project that I came up with about a year ago to make a quilt for a friend's newborn, who's now a year and a half old. Yeah, I know. I still have time. I figure if I get it to him by the time he's 4 years old, like I'm still in that window where, kids like to have a blankie.
I still like to have a blankie.
Well, what are you guys doing? Okay, so talking about crafting, what are you guys doing, like, just to, other than drinking, to kind of de-stress right now? Like Nick, are you in quarantine?
There was dead silence. I was like, what? There's something.
What do you de-stress? What's that?
There's something to do other than drink to de-stress? What would that be?
No, I live in a county where we are under a shelter-in-place order with a voluntary curfew. So I am doing my best to stay inside, but for, some sporadic trips to the grocery store. And my husband is a pilot for Southwest Airlines and he's out flying. So we're also trying to be really mindful, that neither of us really needs to be out there in the public right now. So I've been trying to, thankfully we live in kind of a more urban setting. So we go for a walk and maintain social distance really easily. So just trying to exercise, trying to keep some kind of schedule where there's a little bit of structure, but that's, my personal preference is just to have a tiny bit of structure where I'm not completely left to obsess over the news all day.
Yeah, no, I find that helps is to shut the news off because it gets way too much to hear it all the time. And we're at a safer at home thing, so they're not telling you that you have to absolutely stay home, but they're obviously recommending that you stay home. But my husband and I are still going to the office every day because at this point it's just us at the office, so we can stare at each other in a different four walls than we can at home. So that just, at least as Nick said, it keeps the structure going. So at least you feel like you're, having your routine a little bit. But it is odd for me to be at the office and not running around to meetings and not doing all those things that we so typically do. But at least going to the office is creating a little bit of structure. But then I've been walking more, been doing a lot of work in the yard. We just bought a house back in August that we're still working on getting renovated and complete, and the yard needed a lot of work. So we've been doing a lot of the clean out of the yard to try and get that together. So, just different projects to try and keep entertained and trying to just make sure everything is cleaned and organized and coming together. And I do hope that while people are at their houses, they think about when this is over and people feel comfortable spending again and going out again and doing things again, that they do think about how they can improve their environment, because it is really important to love where you live, because that is our only sanctuary that we have a lot of times, especially now. And, you know, no one could have predicted that this would have been the case, that we all would have been stuck at home, and that we would have all made sure our houses were up to where we absolutely wanted them if we all knew we would be stuck at home for such extended periods of time. But home really is sanctuary. And I think while we're working through all this with Corona, we start thinking about how we can continue to make our homes our sanctuary. And, you know, at the end of it, when people feel comfortable spending money again and calling people into their homes to do things again, what can be done to improve their house and to make their house something that is special when you come home and get away from it all and get away from the craziness of it all. And we can still help virtually. We can still help in other ways to get your house a little bit upgraded. There are certainly ways we can Skype, we can FaceTime, we can do a whole lot of different virtual ways of going through your home and giving you suggestions to make it as comfortable as possible while we're all stuck in our houses for the next month.
Yeah, this is day 16 for me, by the way. This is the 16th
wow.
day. So Dallas started recommending people shelter in place way before they actually made a mandate to do it. So now we have mandatory curfews, like they don't want you out unless, you know, you have to go to the pharmacy or the grocery store. This is day 16. And I will tell you, when you spend a lot of time in your home, which we all are, you do. I mean, you notice things, and you notice little projects that you finally have the time to take a look at, or, you know, finally are noticing that you like or don't like. And now is the time. I mean, really, if you're going to do it, now is kind of the time to go ahead and do it. We still have more than likely another month, if not more, and we might as well find something to busy ourselves with and find something to cheer us up, you know, to bring some energy and some excitement and some happiness into your home.
Yeah, so some future Wine and Design episodes, we are going to talk about paint and how you can change your paint color to really reinvigorate your space. We're going to also talk about how to have a professional looking Zoom meeting, so you're not stuck with some terrible background. Or in the case of one of my friends, she was on the phone, she called into a Zoom meeting, and the guy apparently didn't realize his visual was on, and he was sitting there topless. So these are the kinds of things, you know, that we can all think about as we move forward.
I had a Zoom meeting yesterday, and I turned the camera off so fast. It was just like nope. Not doing that.
Make sure your camera's off, people. If you are sitting there without a shirt on, make sure your camera is off.
Pants are optional, though.
Pants are optional. No one can see the pants. Yeah, don't stand up. Don't stand up.
Yeah.
We were talking to Nick earlier, like, so Nick got a haircut, which, you know, a lot of people right now are regretting the fact that they didn't. And so I get up in the morning, and, you know, it's, you know, it doesn't do. It doesn't do.
It's not getting prettier, people. The further we get into this, the uglier it's going to be. Like we all just got to brace ourselves for what we really look like 20 pounds from now. It's just not going to get prettier.
It's the headscarf version of Wine and Design.
Yeah.
Honey, I do want to give a shout out to Jorge too. As you said before, your husband's a pilot, and he's still an essential employee. He's still going out and flying, right?
Yeah, he is. And it's Southwest is and I think all airlines are essential. They do fly cargo. They don't just fly passengers. They are flying you know, medical personnel around the country. They're flying volunteers. You know, folks are volunteering to go work in New York and at some of the hard hit areas, and you know, they're flying those folks into those areas. And it is, you know, it is an essential business, and so he's out there doing his part.
Good. Well, I hope he stays safe and healthy and doesn't bring anything home to you, because he'll never hear the end of it if he does.
we have our protocol in place. So we started, when he comes home, he leaves his shoes outside, and he bought some disinfectant where he disinfects his shoes. He changes, he showers, and we spray his luggage with Lysol. So.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you never know. I mean, I think that's probably it's prudent.
Yeah, I've wondered about that. If I just need to keep the can of Lysol to spray down everything when I come in, you know, not that I'm going anywhere other than the grocery store, but.
Yeah, I think.
I feel like you want to Lysol it down.
Yeah, I think it's like, you know, there's kind of, you know, high risk issues and lower risk issues. But yeah, it's when in doubt, just spray that with Lysol.
Like so many things.
We're all going to be such germaphobes at the end of this. Like where you're not going to, I was kind of bad enough before it, but now you're really not going to want to touch anybody. You're not going to touch anything. Like,
there's a lot of stuff we don't want to know, you guys.
It's all going to be like a scene from, what was it, Naked Gun 2.5, where they had the giant body condoms. That's what we're all going to be walking around in.
It's true. I was thinking more like Bubble Boy from Seinfeld, but I like that better.
Yeah, I like the condoms too.
Yeah,
you can still embrace, you know.
Well, those are our two cottage industries. It's designer face masks and body condoms. On that note, thank you guys for joining us today in Design. We hope you did get maybe some useful tips. All right, thank you guys for joining us today on another episode of Wine and Design. We will actually come up with some more design tips and more wine drinking ideas as we move forward. Cheers, everybody.
Thank y'all very much. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.